Okay. I am not smart. Um, I'm not stupid. But I've got this story in my head that I've been carrying with me for roughly 30 years, 25 or 30 years. And it's a story I want to write or present in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm not 100% sure how to even go about doing that. I'm not a published author. Okay? It's like, but this story, I think, of course, I think I'm biased, but would be a good story to tell. So I'll tell it to you right now. And I'm going to upload it on TikTok, and I'm going to upload it on my YouTube channel, Hermit the Frog. Um, it's a fiction, as it were. But what you're going to have is a young boy born to a single mom. All right, she's a waitress, just scraping by, trying to do her thing. Okay, and ends up like she has cervical cancer. Okay, caused by talcum powder. But at the time of that, I thought of this story that wasn't a thing, but apparently now it really is. So, so it works. But the little boy, right now I'm calling him Daniel, as it were. He overhears a conversation in the trailer one night between his mom and a medical professional. It wasn't like it's kind of sort of like a house call from a doctor. That don't happen very often. But anyway, this was important enough because it's like, hey, listen, woman, you're about to die. All right, there's not a whole lot we can do at this point. Here's some treatment options. Here's some things we can do to try to help you out with that. Right? And I'm sorry, not cervical, ovarian cancer. Yeah. Anyway, but the boy, the little boy Daniel, hears this, very concerned. He's pretending to be asleep, like he's not listening. And then he dreams. He dreams, and he can see his mother's translucent form within his dream, and he can see the cancer inside of her body, and he reaches in and plucks it out with his hand. All right. And the next morning, he wakes up and is like, Mom, I cured you. I got rid of the cancer. And she's like, oh, my sweet little angel baby boy. You don't understand how medical science works. But he was convinced. And strange thing is, in the story, is like a couple years later, well, not a couple years, but, sometime later, doctors are, looking, and they're like, wait a minute. Your cancer's gone. You have no cancer. Your ovaries and everything is all good. It's like perfectly normal. And so the mom is just suddenly relieved, thinks about her son's dream, but dismisses it. It's just something random, But she has a new lease on life, so she gets remarried. Okay? And her and her new husband, have a child. So now Daniel's got a little baby sister. And Daniel's just like, I did that, But nobody takes him seriously because he's just a kid. Whatever. Flash forward several years, okay? He's got a best friend in high school who is involved in a car wreck, okay? And Daniel dreams again. He sees his best friend. He sees his translucent body. He sees the broken bones. He sees the punctured, lungs and everything. And he reaches in and, in his dream, saves his friend's life, fixes him. And again, at the hospital, well, the doctor's like, huh, no, you're good. All right. So Daniel's friend becomes his biggest supporter, if you will. As time goes on, Daniel goes on tour. He ain't trying to make money. He's just trying to help people, right? But his friend is like, "No, this dude can heal you. He's a miracle worker. Don't know how it works, right?" What they came up with was a plan, because it's like the only time Daniel could do that was like while he was sleeping, while he was dreaming, okay? But all that it required was for a touch, okay? He had to make physical contact with the person, all right? So he goes on tour, in little third world countries, people line up for days. It's an event. Daniel's medical staff, Daniel's team, including his best friend, are like, well, what we're going to have to do is keep you in a chemically induced coma, okay, during the time that you're here. So the people line up for miles and wait for days to come up and touch his hand, okay, in the hopes that maybe someday he will dream of a cure for them, right? And it works. Like, statistically, it's not 100%, right? But because some people are hypochondriacs, I haven't worked all the details and all the arguments from the story, but there's a movement that rises up against him, calling him a charlatan, just based on the numbers, and one of the leaders of that resistance movement is his sister. Now, she's a true believer. She's like, no, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. But that's wrong. That was her position. Her boyfriend was like, he's a charlatan, this is all lies, right? So there's kind of a rub there. And I don't know how the story ends exactly, because there's a political movement, there's an online discussion, people are talking about it, right? And you can imagine, all the different arguments, for or against, but the story takes place within specifically Daniel's perspective, his best friend's perspective, who's using him to get rich, because it turns out his best friend's like apparently just an asshole. His sister, who believes that it's real, but thinks that it's wrong, okay? Because life's just happen without somebody else's intervention. She feels like she should have never been born. And her boyfriend is like, they got an odd relationship. But towards the very end of the book, what's going to happen is Daniel's sister is going to realize that she has the same exact power, as it were. And she dreams of her brother one night. And she can see his translucent body, but there's not a whole lot wrong with it, It's like he's okay. There's no cancer. There's no, there's nothing going on. But she sees his heart beating, and she reaches in and crushes it, and then realizes that she also has the power to connect to every single human being that's ever touched his hand. And then, if there's a sequel, it'll be her trying to, correct what she thinks was wrong in the first place and destroy every single human being that should have died in the first place. I call it Sleeping Buddha.